morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to worship. And we extend a special welcome to our visitors. My name is Dee Carter. You all know enough about me, I don't have to tell you. Special thanks and welcome to our Ohio Light Opera musicians, Laura Chalmers and Emery Roseman. Thank you for coming. We welcome Reverend Michael Howard, Minister of Faith and Action for the Living Water Association. His bio is printed on the back page of our bulletin. Please note the announcement in our bulletin about a new church directory. Please sign up to have your picture taken August 21st through the 24th. And it's about 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock, so don't forget the back pages to sign up. We also need directory volunteers to serve as greeters, sign-ups, and to make member contacts. Our parish nurses offer blood pressure screenings in the church office after worship. And I think today is Ella. There she is. Please see the bulletin for more announcements. And I understand there's a party in the parking lot coming up soon. And are there any other announcements from the congregation? If not, let us now be in the spirit of worship. is eager to restore us to right relationships. The Creator is waiting to claim us as God's own. We have come to meet the God who welcomes us. We have gathered to experience God's steadfast love. Living God, we come as your children to be reclaimed and blessed. We need the inner strength that comes to us through worship. We ask that you help us take away the noisy clamor that would make us captives of human greed and rejection of neighbor. Turn us toward the source of our salvation, toward your steadfast love and faithfulness for all humankind. Amen. Jesus says, anyone who welcomes you welcomes me, and anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. In Christ we greet and welcome all who have gathered to drink the life-giving water that comes from God. Please take a moment and greet those around you with love.
As our service of worship continues, we invite children at heart to come forward for a message.
At heart. Oh, there we go.
There you go. All right, we have a good group up here today. How is everybody? All right, good. How many of you were here last week?
Oh, yeah, you got butter sweet.
Oh, no, I would never do that. So I want to remind you of something. Cicadas. How many of you saw what I had last week? I gotta completely disable this phone so we don't have a problem later. I have something here. I have two things here to show you. Something really cool. This is really cool, Xavier. I was walking across the street in the church, and apparently it got hit in the road or something, but I've never had such a nice specimen of a cicada. And I want you to notice two things. There's little eyes here on both sides. And look at those wings. Look how fragile those wings are. See how clear they are? See how they kind of shine? You have a question? Yeah. Okay. I found it right on Buckeye Street out here. And it was a perfect model. Look at that. Look at that. Pretty good. Yeah, do you ever find those? Like you find like the casing on trees sometimes, right? But a lot of people, the kids last week said they were scared when they heard the cicadas at night. You know, so sometimes we can be scared, but now we know what it looks like, right? It's just a little bug that's up in a tree that rubs his wings together and makes that sound. But it can be a spooky sound if you don't know what it is, right? So this is the little black box, and remember I got something I pull out of here. This must be bug season or something, right? Because I'm always finding bugs. So look what I found out there. Look at that. That's a pretty good model there. Look at that. Yeah, it's a little swallowtail. See the little tail there? Those little pointy things with tails on there. See how pretty that is? You know what? I found that laying in the road when I came over. Yeah, look at that. Isn't that pretty cool? So it's got the wings. Oh, that's almost a perfect model, isn't it? So I want to remind you that there's only a few days left before school starts. A couple weeks. What grade are you going to be in this next year? All right, that's important. But there's so many cool things that happen in the summer, aren't there? And so I want you to really enjoy these last few days of summer as we get through August. It's already the first Sunday of August. And I want you to go out at night, listen to all the bugs. That's really pretty cool. Especially, too, you might hear some birds chirping. But what about a butterfly? What kind of sound do they make? They don't make any sound as far as I know. Not that we can hear with the human ear anyway. But look at how much beauty there is in nature. So I want to encourage you guys to go out and listen for the cicadas, because you can still hear them, and to remember what they look like, and then to think about what a beautiful world we have with butterflies like that. So before you go, let's share together in a word of prayer. Almighty God, we ask for your blessing upon all of us who are children at heart. Watch over us and bless us in all our ways as we learn about the world, as we share things with one another, and we enjoy this wonderful creation that you've made for us to live in love and peace. Watch over all of us. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Okay, I want to thank all of you for coming up today, and have a good day in Sunday school. We have the pleasure today to have Reverend Michael Howard with us. He is the Minister of Faith in Action in the Living Waters Association. I want to take a moment to say that about a year and a half ago, the Eastern Ohio Association and the Western Reserve Association, which is primarily centered in the Cleveland area, united and formed the Living Waters Association. So when I talk about the Living Waters Association, it's a very big region that stretches from about Vermilion on the west to the Pennsylvania border on the east, and extends down into the very southernmost parts of Ohio along the Ohio River. We are, I believe, the westernmost church in the former EOA Association. So if you start here and you go over to Pennsylvania, that's the size of the association. You may also remember that in November we had Nairi Carton, who came, and she was our guest speaker on the kickoff Sunday for our 200th anniversary. She is the general minister of our association. And I was delighted when Michael came and this spring, he's 3 months now? 3 months into the association. So we're lucky to have gotten him so early on. We have a staff member that's dedicated to faith and action. So we want to welcome Michael here, and I know that he is going to be singing our tune, okay? Because that's that's what we're up and about. So welcome, Michael. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, so this morning, it's so great to be here. You can't imagine actually how excited I am to be here because of all the congregations, out of the 150 congregations in our association, this is one doing the kind of work that I came here to help encourage everybody else to do. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning. But I want to sort of get us on the same page, and since I sort of look out and I think that you might be part of the same tribe I am, I sort of want to see if that's true. So I'm going to invite you to do something that might be uncomfortable. Turn to your neighbor, and I'm going to ask you this one quick Sunday school question, since that's where we went to just now, right? Sunday school. So turn to your neighbor and answer this question, and I assume everybody knows the answer, so you only get 30 seconds. Ready, set, go. The question is, what is the gospel? What is the gospel? Turn to your neighbors and see if you know the answer to that question. What is the gospel?
Oh, okay, that clears it up. It's the good news. There you go. Okay. Works for me.
All right, so I said I would only give you 30 seconds. I think that's about it. So I would go around and I would ask you if you could tell me the answers that you came up with. But instead, that would be a good exercise. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell you what I think that the answer is. And if you disagree, then that's fine. If we're close, maybe we can spend some time later talking about it. But here's how I understand what the gospel is. I believe that the gospel is the thing that I've been invited to come here to preach to you, to share with you the gospel. That's a big task. What is the gospel? What is it we're about? Why does the church exist? What is this thing? Well, for me, the gospel is a story. But it's not just any story, it's a mighty and dangerous story. It's a mighty story because it's the story about the force that brought creation into being. It's a mighty story. But it's also a dangerous story because it's not just about the force that brought creation into being. It's also about the force that threatens to unsettle us, to rework us, to make everything new, to take the things that we think are comfortable and good and to rework them and to reorient us and to put us going in the direction God wants us to be. It's a mighty and dangerous story. It's a story about the force that brought creation into being. But it's also the story about the dream at the heart of God. The cry at the core of creation, the yearning at the heart of the universe that threatens to remake everything according to the image of the dream of God. I think the gospel is about the story of the dream of God, bursting forth into reality, begging us to pay attention, asking to become a part of our life. And according to the gospel passage that we have this morning, it demands that we give all of ourselves to it. And I want to share that with you this morning, but I also want to share with you a vision that comes from our association. So as I share with you the vision that our association had, which is what I'm here for, and I sort of help you see how it fits along with who you are as a congregation, I'm going to share with you that vision and invite you to participate, but I'm going to do it in the context of the narrative that we read just this morning. And to get there, I want to talk to you a little bit about your congregation so you can sort of see whether we're on the same page. And so here's a couple of questions. I have to bring my trusty notebook because, wow, you may know your history very well. I don't know it. So here are the questions. So in the beginning, I've been reading history, so you have to forgive me. I'm not going to go through a whole history narrative. That would take an hour and a half this morning or more. But here's some basic questions. So in the beginning, this area was populated by a group of people we know very little about, before the Erie Indians were here. And one writer tried to paint a picture of who this community was and created a character named Crow Flying High. So told the story of how Crow Flying High would get on the canoe and then go up the Tuscarora and then over Akron, the Summit, the Portage area, and then get back overlooking the whole area. both from looking north toward Lake Erie, looking south towards everything else that's below, and asked this question. And this is what the question that came up to me. What did Crow Flying High dream of when he was looking at this area, looking at this land? The people who were here before the Eries, how did they dream about this space? Or if we go forward with the Eries, how did the Erie people dream of this space? What dreams did they have for the kind of space that this would be? Or after the Eries, if you didn't know, then when the colonizers came in over on the east, then it pushed all of those folks west. They came here, and so it was the 6 nations of natives who came here and pushed the Eries out. What did they dream of when they entered this space? They created villages. There was a village down over where I think the cemetery is now, where they built an apple orchard. Right? So when the first white settlers came in this space in 1808, they encountered a village of natives that had an apple orchard. What did they imagine this space to be? What was their dream for this space? Well, fast forwarding a little bit, from 1813, where the War of 1812 happened, and from 1813 to 1820, there was a giving away of land grants. So basically, as fast as you could get them, people were taking them up. So that by 1820, this place was filled with 20,000 settlers. By that time, what did those 10,000, 20,000 settlers who came here in droves between 1813 and 1820, what did they imagine for this space? Many of them were Germans who came from Pennsylvania. Am I getting the story right a little bit? And so they decided that they were going to form a religious community here. It would be both Reformed and Lutherans. And in 1819, they chartered a new church. They had one pastor over 2 different congregations. What did he imagine this space to be like some 200 years ago? Well, in 2004, when you called Kevin, what was the vision then? What did you imagine this space would be? Or in 2016, when you decided to birth North Street Mission, what was the dream that you had for the community that you're in? See, the thing that I'm interested in as the Minister of Faith in Action for the Living Water Association is the way that our understanding of the gospel and the dreams that we have for the spaces we inhabit intersect. This is so important to get what I'm getting ready to say, which is I think the thing that's really important for us to pay attention to is the way that our understanding of the gospel relates to the dreams that we have for the spaces we have. What is your dream for this space? That's the question I've come and I've been charged with asking you this morning. Since I was asked to preach the gospel, I want to share with you what I think is a compelling vision that is part of what I understand to be the dream at the heart of God. What is the gospel? What is the dream of God? And I begin with, tried my quickest to tell you, I think, one of the best stories ever told. It's the story of Jesus. And the story of Jesus in Luke. So I'm talking about Luke's narrative today. One of the things that I think we have a hard time in church doing is we read these little sections of the story and we don't get to see the whole picture. You know, when I watch a drama on TV, they have this clip at the very beginning. You can watch less than 5 minutes old to try to tell you what had happened up until now. Most of the time, we don't get that in the gospel story. So when you get to a passage like ours today, you don't see it in the context. And even if you're in churches that follow a lectionary calendar where you're reading it episode after episode, you don't see it all together. So I'm going to try as quickly as I can to tell the story. How am I doing so far? Okay? All right, so Jesus opens up in Luke 4 by reading from the Isaiah scroll. Forgive me if you know this story. And he reads from the Isaiah scroll in the very first synagogue when he was 33 years old, and he had just left the Jordan and been baptized by John. And he's goes into the first synagogue and gives his first speech in Luke 4. He reads from the Isaiah scroll and he says, "Today I have been anointed to come and tell you the good news. We're going to take care of the poor. We're going to open everybody's eyes." Now, as somebody who cares about people with special needs, I don't think that the metaphor of opening the eyes of the blind is really helpful here. I think it's important to talk about what we mean, which is helping people come to be aware of the way that their actions affect the community that they live in. For them to have a sense of awareness that everything that you need in order to build the kind of world God wants, you have. opening the eyes of the blind, helping people to be able to be aware of their power, of their ability to make a difference, to preach good news to the poor, to help people open their eyes to see, to set the prisoners free, to declare the year of the Lord's Jubilee. That's Luke chapter 4. John Dominic Crossan, a historical Jesus scholar, described it this way. They tried to kill Jesus, but when he left the synagogue, the very first thing he started doing was gathering together a group of people who were outcasts and left behind. People who were broken and poor and hurting and in need. All the people who nobody else wanted, Jesus decided to build a movement with them. John Dominic Crossan called it, Jesus was the alternative boundary keeper. He went around into society, and all those places where people had put up division and said, those people don't belong, Jesus went and erased those. And started building a new movement full of people who were left out and said, we are going to birth the beauty of the dream of God together. And you're going to be a part of it. And so, in Luke chapter 9, you get the story of the Mount of Transfiguration. Does everybody know what that story is? Transfiguration. What was transfigured on the Mount of Transfiguration? Does anybody know? Jesus is... Come on, somebody knows it. Jesus is what? Face. On the Mount of Transfiguration, Jesus' face was transfigured, and Luke says he set his face toward where? Does anybody know that one? Toward Jerusalem. Here's the thing that you need to know about Luke. It's the most important thing that you'll learn about Luke. Not only does Luke care about the poor, Luke is a journey to Jerusalem. The Gospel of Luke is about Jesus' journey to Jerusalem. So in Luke chapter 9, Jesus got this whole crowd of followers, and he's on his way to Jerusalem. And he sends out 75 people ahead of him. You heard that one recently? 72 disciples. And he sends them out ahead of him. Ahead of him where? Where is Jesus going that he would send people ahead of him? Jesus is going to where? Jerusalem. Now here's the thing about Jerusalem. Many people think Jerusalem is about the cross, and it is, and that's important. And we can talk about why the cross happened and what it means, and what role that the cross plays in our faith. But this morning I want to talk about Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is the place that was supposed to be the birthplace for the dream of God. Jerusalem was the place that you would go to if you were hurting and broken. Jerusalem was the place where the temple was. It was supposed to be this thin place where if you wanted to get a taste of heaven, you go to Jerusalem. Jerusalem was far from that. Jesus is taking people to Jerusalem because Jesus is taking them to the place that's supposed to be the birthplace of the dream of God. Jesus is trying to shape their imagination, to invite them to be a participant in building the dream of God. And he sends these disciples out ahead of him and he says, have a conversation. Tell people that we're going to birth the dream of God. Tell them that all the outcasts and the broken and the left behind, they're going to come together and be a part of the movement. And when you share this, if people listen and they want to participate, that's awesome. Sit down with them. Make your home with them. Become friends with them. Make it your family. Gather together a group from that community and make it a part of the movement. But you know, if they don't listen to you, don't be discouraged. Because if they don't listen to you, they're not going to listen to me. And it was my message, Jesus says. And if they don't listen to me, they're not going to listen to God. And if they don't listen to God, then there's no way that they can participate in the birthing of the dream of God. So just dust your feet off and go to the next place. Just go and find the people who want to participate in this, because we're getting ready to start something fantastic. So then Jesus goes to Martha and Mary's house. I skipped over the story where a lawyer came to Jesus and he asked him, he said, how would I be a part of this? And Jesus said, well, go and read the Torah. What does the Torah say? And he said, well, love your neighbor. And the guy says, who's my neighbor? And Jesus says, let's stop playing games. You see people who are hurting in the ditch, who nobody's taking care of, especially religious leaders. What do? You take care of them. You take care of people who have been left behind hurting. If you do that, you get to participate. If you don't, forget about it. So then Jesus goes in the home of Martha and Mary, and he says to Martha, you've been so preoccupied with so many things. You care about the color of the carpet. You care about who's going to be serving which meal. You care about how many tables you're going to set up. The only thing you need to be concerned about, one thing, Jesus said to Martha, one thing, the birthing of the dream of God. One thing. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all God's righteousness, and everything else will be given you. One thing. Then, after that, Jesus gives them a roadmap, a treasure map. I call it the disciples' prayer. Some people call it the Lord's Prayer. Give us this day our daily bread. Make sure everybody who's hungry gets fed. Pray for God's kingdom to come and God's will be done, that the dream of God can come about in this place. And then not to be tempted that this is about us, but that we get to celebrate and participating in the dream of God becoming a reality. That would be our prayer. So this morning, when we hear the story of a guy coming up and asking Jesus, what do I get to do with my inheritance? Can I get some of that? How do we figure out between the two of us brothers who's going to get to spend the money that is our inheritance? What's interesting is many of us, we don't get all the different nuances of this passage. First of all, it begins by talking about a crowd. Does anybody know why the crowd would be important? Because it wants to put you in the setting. There are thousands of people listening to this answer. Jesus is not just talking to one person. He's talking to thousands of them. And so when the person comes up and asks about his inheritance, it answers a question that many of us ask. What do we do with our resources? How are we supposed to use the things that have been given to us by the people who came before us? Like our buildings. Many of our churches have buildings and we can't figure out what to do with them. Churches have endowments. We're just trying to figure out how to hang on as people dwindle and people stop coming to church and our congregations get old. What's our inheritance? When are we going to get what's coming to us? As people who are following Jesus, who expect that the Gospels are going to be about salvation, when is that coming? When are we going to get our inheritance, Jesus? And you know his answer was? You fool. Now, I'm not going to go around and start calling people foolish. I'm not going to do that. But it's important to notice that Jesus says, if you look, now we didn't get this in our passage, but if you read past the reading today, you see Jesus keeps going. And he says, you foolish people, look at the birds. Look at the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. They're not homeless. Why do we have homeless people? Why is it that no other creature on the face of the earth is homeless, and yet human beings can't find a place to lay their head? You hear that? Ever hear Jesus say something like that? Jesus says, focus on one thing. This very day, your life is being demanded of you. So this morning, I want to share with you a vision. And I hope that you don't hear me preaching to you, because this vision I'm getting ready to share, I'm asking you to participate in, not as people who are coming into something already formed. I'm asking you, Trinity, to participate by being leaders of the rest of our association. We have 150 congregations spread all throughout Northeast Ohio. And what I imagine that the dream, the vision that I came on board to participate in is helping every one of our 150 congregations come to believe that the reason that they exist is to take care of the communities in which they are. To take care of their communities. The only reason that the churches exist is in order to take care of their community. So what I want to do is invite you to participate with us to dream God's dream for this area. Of all the dreams, of all the ways that we have imagined our communities can be, what I want to be able to do is to sit down with folks like you and to look at all the maps and all the stuff and find out what the needs are in our community and figure out how to use our resources to take care of them. And if we can just take care of a little bit, we'll be doing what we were called to do. Do we want to participate with Jesus in the birthing of the dream of God? Here's some quick things to share with you. In Wayne County, according to the United Way, they had a study that came out. I'm sorry I'm dancing. I'm back and forth between up here and down here. In Wayne County, they did a study a few years ago called ALICE. ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. Working people who have to struggle to figure out how to pay for housing, food, healthcare, childcare, and transportation. If they don't have enough money to pay for all of those things, then that means they have to balance between them. They have to decide to pay for healthcare or food or housing. So what United Way says, how much does that cost? And anybody below that has to struggle for those things, they're below the ALICE threshold. In Wayne County, that's 17,000 people. In Wayne, sorry, not 17,000 people, 17,000 households. So that's like almost 32,000. 17,000 households in Wayne County have to decide every day, every week, whether they're going to pay for housing or food or healthcare or childcare or transportation. In Worcester, the town where you are right now, inside the city limits now, not just outside, inside the city limits, there are 5,638 households. Almost 10,000 people in this city, who have to decide whether they're going to pay for food or pay for housing. I think we can do something about it. I think you've already started. I think that you've already started and you're doing lots of great good things here. And I want to find a way to help you and support you. But I also want to imagine if you could dream with me bigger about not just figuring out how to take care of Worcester, but how to take care of all of our associations, all 150 congregations. If we could all get together and dream big, what would it be like if we could build a place that followed Jesus' teachings so that the poor were preached good news? That all of our people were awakened to believe that they could participate in bringing this dream about. That we could use our resources so that there is no more oppression. So that these people who struggle don't have to struggle. That's my vision. That's the vision I think that our association had when they decided to hire somebody like me who came in as a community organizer, and I don't have to do anything. I don't get to work with pastors in terms of their credentialing. I don't work with troubling congregations to figure out how to keep them open. I don't do church governance. I don't do any of the things that you would expect a minister for the association to do. I do one thing. Help our congregations learn to be good at taking care of our communities. So the invitation is for you to participate. Thanks for letting me share with you.